I'm Rashi Vatz with your Fox 26 crime files. First, a deadly rampage over in Baytown. They say a 33-year-old killed 2 people and shot 2 others. Fox 26's Tiffany Justice spoke with the family of one of the victims.
He was a great kid. He was a great kid.
Joseph Ferry, uncle to 34-year-old George Anthony King, one of 4 victims from Wednesday's deadly shooting spree in Baytown. Police say 2 people died. 2 others were injured at the hands of 33-year-old Ron Welch.
I'm really mad. That's been the predominant emotion since last night.
Ferry says his nephew never got into an altercation with Welch. As the Keene family was leaving their home, he says they almost got into a car accident with the suspect.
My nephew noticed that the guy was still following them. They drove about a mile, which brings them to Evergreen and Tri-City Beach Road. The truck moved around them, blocked them in. Within the first few bullets, my nephew was struck in the head and died. His wife immediately jumped through the seats into the back to cover their 2 children.
Baytown police say after shooting at the Keene family car, killing George, a passerby slowed down, concerned someone was injured. She was also shot. They say Welch then drove up the street and shot another man. He later died at the hospital. The suspect then returned back to the initial crime scene where officers say they were forced to fire their weapons.
I believe that society has taken a real light value in human life.
Joseph tells us he hasn't had time to grieve, but will make sure his nephew is never forgotten.
Over the last 12 years, I've watched him really work hard, and he was real proactive with his kids.
Tiffany Justice reporting. Well, jury selection this week for the retrial of a Bel Air man accused of murdering his parents back in 2016. We're talking about Antonio Armstrong Jr. He was 16 years old when investigators say he shot his former NFL player dad and his mom while they were sleeping. Here's Natalie He.
Antonio Armstrong Jr. was present in court Monday as a judge and attorney screened a pool of 120 potential jurors for his retrial. The prospects were questioned for several hours on their ability to be unbiased and Armstrong's right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. The potential jurors were also reminded in detail of their would-be responsibilities as the trial is expected to take up to a month to complete. Armstrong is charged with capital murder, accused of shooting and killing both his parents, Don and Antonio Armstrong Sr., as they were sleeping in their Bel Air home in July of 2016. Armstrong was 16 years old then, but was charged as an adult. His father, Antonio Armstrong Sr., was a former NFL linebacker.
It's just day one. It's impossible to tell what our jury's going to be. We have another full day of that. Then the lawyers will have the opportunity to talk to the people that are left. But we have some really smart people in Harris County, some really intelligent jurors, some very thoughtful questions. And I think overall we're very happy with the people that show up. And I talked about this case for 6 years. I've done enough talking. You guys have heard all the evidence in the case. You've heard our arguments. We still believe in them very strongly. We very strongly believe AJ's innocent. We're going to continue to fight for him, and we're going to show that to this new jury.
The case and the first murder trial in 2019 made national headlines, but jurors ultimately were not able to make a unanimous decision. 3 years later, several different motions have been filed, and new evidence is expected to be introduced.
And that was Natalie He reporting for us there. A heartbroken Houston grandfather now demanding answers. Over the weekend, his grandson, just 6 years old, little Darian Lewis, he died after getting hit by an alleged drunk driver. Fox 26's Matthew Seedorf has more from the grandfather.
I saw my grandson down up out of the car.
Disturbing graphic images, Dana Hubbard continues replaying in his head.
My grandson didn't cry, didn't holler. My grandson is now the speed bump. He was actually a human being.
His 6-year-old grandson, Darian Lewis, described as a happy kid who loved smiling. They had been walking across this parking lot off Leewood Boulevard Saturday evening to buy a snack.
That's when I saw him the first time hit my grandson. I saw my grandson rolled up under the tire. I said, Mr. Flores, you just hit my grandson. What's wrong with you? He looked at me with a smirk, put the car in reverse, backed up on my grandson again.
The driver running over Darian's helpless body at least twice.
I held his hand. I felt his pulse to the point where it stopped beating altogether. And this is one sight, vision, I cannot get out of my head.
This little 6-year-old boy didn't even get to live.
Pedro Alberto Hernandez now charged with murder and his third DWI. Police say he admits to drinking at least 4 beers before the crash.
He struck the child, ran over the child, and then was told that he had struck the child, and so he backed again onto the child.
Still hard to hold my composure.
A grandfather now using this tragic night as motivation, pushing for answers and legal changes.
Somebody fumbled the ball. This is a life. Get the tire off of his head. Pass a law.
Reporting in Houston, Matthew Seedorf, Fox 26 News.
Just awful. Well, after fleeing to Mexico, a man accused of kidnapping and murdering his ex-girlfriend was booked in jail at the Pasadena Police Department. Fox 26's Randy Wallace has that story.
She told everybody the same thing. Something has to happen to me before they actually pay attention to me.
Pasadena police say they were aware of the volatile relationship between 30-year-old Daniel Chacon and his ex-girlfriend, Mayra Gutierrez.
On September 1st, 2022, the suspect in this case actually called the Pasadena police. I'm reporting that the victim was driving a vehicle with their child intoxicated. Officers got out there, investigated. They learned that she was not intoxicated.
Police say Gutierrez told them Chacon had assaulted her with a gun, but no gun was found. Despite Gutierrez telling them she did not want to file charges, police say they still contacted the DA's office.
Charging decisions by the DA's office have to be based on evidence to establish probable cause. And a significant factor in that is that the victims have ongoing conversations with investigators, and we have to rely on the victims for this evidence.
Gutierrez and Chacon have a 5-month-old baby together. Police say Chacon kidnapped Gutierrez when she went to the apartment they once shared on Monday to see the baby. Gutierrez was later found shot to death. Court documents state Chacon told his uncle, quote, "I think I'm going to have to kill this girl."
The system was so messed up that they gave him custody of the baby, knowing he had all these felonies and all these prior whatever cases that he had.
In 2012, Chacon pled guilty to a misdemeanor charge of assaulting a family member. 5 years later, he pled guilty to a felony charge of assault of a family member, but that charge was downgraded to a misdemeanor. That victim also had children with Chacon. Gutierrez's son said his mother was there for anyone who needed help.
Anything you want, she's right there. You can call her, she's right there. Anything you want. She was always so helpful.
But as far as Gutierrez's family is concerned, the criminal justice system was no help to her.
That was Randy Wallace reporting. Well, a man has been arrested in the 2020 shooting death of a transgender woman. Police say 32-year-old Jermal Richards shot to death 22-year-old Asia Foster. Her body was left on the side of the road on East Green Ridge Drive in Southwest Houston. There was a wild chain of events that cost a man his life, and it all started with the judge's decision. He granted a man bond even after he pled guilty to aggravated robbery. And you guessed it, while he was out on bond, he allegedly killed a man. Fox 26's Randy Wallace with this story.
October 21st, 2016, 29-year-old Giovanni Montiel is charged with capital murder. His bond set at $200,000.
He sits in the Harris County Jail for over some odd years.
December of 2019, Montiel enters a guilty plea to a reduced charge of aggravated robbery. 185th Criminal District Court Judge Jason Lawang orders a pre-sentence investigation, or PSI.
Nothing happens for 7 months, over 7 months actually. Nothing.
July of 2020, Judge Lawang sets bond for Montiel at just $20 grand. Montiel, who knows he could go to prison for 30 years, walks out of jail.
I've just never seen a situation like this.
Brad Hart was the judge in the 230th Criminal District Court for 6 years. He's vying for that bench again this November.
I've never seen a situation where a person is charged with capital murder, reduced to an aggravated robbery, pleads to a PSI with potential sentence up to 30 years and get a bond that low.
And I've run this by several judges and former judges, and asked them to take a good hard look at this, and they said they'd never seen anything like it.
October 21st, 2020, 3 months after bonding out of jail, police say Montiel shot and killed 25-year-old Alejandro Ocanes.
He was very happy, and we were just in the point of our lives that we were so happy until, this tragedy happened.
Alejandro had a 1-year-old baby and a stepchild.
He was my only child. He's my only child, and I don't, he's no longer here with us. We miss him very much. It's hard.
Montiel is back behind bars, charged with murder. Get this, the PSI the court ordered for the guilty plea has yet to happen.
Technically, he's still charged with capital murder because that deal has never been consummated. It's never been fully completed.
Alejandro's mother has this message for Judge Luong.
Please do not let, criminals that have murdered before out, just so that they can do the same thing again.
Judge Jason Luong lost in the primary, and we have an open invitation to all criminal district court judges and their opponents to be interviewed. And that is this week's Fox 26 Crime Files.